Okay, hola all, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. Please step into my office, go ahead and have a seat at your leisure, but like right now. This will be hopefully be the conclusion for this series on enlightenment. And, what I'm going to do right here is kind of try to bring us all up to speed on the previous videos, for the most part, the major values involved, and then go ahead and present the actual fundamental values that explain what I've been trying to get at this whole time, but kind of failing. And I did get a lot across, mainly, useful hints and personal considerations, but it's been a long past few weeks, or past few days. I mean, week and a half or so, however long it's been. It seems a long time to me. And I am sorry to the people that I've been sort of kind of neglecting. For the most part, I am not intentionally doing that. There are various reasons why I'm not. I'm really busy, got a lot to do, and there's a lot on my mind, a lot on my plate, and I'm really working hard to move as fast as I can, while at the same time there are factors involved with Liara that's kind of not really alerting me to things at the moment. Major one being that I reprogrammed my alert tone, my alert sound for messages to something that I began to notice when I got like a pile up of 30 to 40 messages all at once together, like one after another. I noticed that sound and I was like, what is that? And realized that all this time my brain had kind of not really been registering the sound of my alert as being an alert. It just kind of slipped by. So I do apologize that I'm so slow on Messenger, guys, but I'll pick it up. I have in fact improved. It seems as though that we've had a pretty great degree of success with the experiment this time. I have retained the qualities so far, and it has been a couple, maybe 3 days even, so that should be long enough to establish it. So we're taking the new me for a test drive. Also, I got should be starting work tonight, so see how that works out. Everybody wish me excellence. Anyways, to bring us up to speed, we're speaking about a state of being, most often referred to as being nirvana or enlightenment from Buddhism, or in Hinduism, Samadhi or Raksha. And this is going to be seen as the final step of most yogic practices, that is to say yoga, which is not demon worship, as Hacking the Headlines Girl would have people believe. It is in fact just a physiological exercise meant to kind of integrate pieces of the spirit or psyche, which something that we have to make very clear here that we tried to get across in the second video, although there was a lot of wind interference that I was unaware of, and just problems with the microphone and such. So what I was trying to say there is speaking to the concept of NPCs being, people without consciousness or without self-awareness, people that have no real identity. That's not really a possibility at all. It's not even an approachable concept, because the fact of the matter is, once you get to the higher levels, once you actually get beyond this state of Samadhi, which it is, in fact, it's referred to as being the highest and purest state of consciousness, and that is technically correct, but that does not mean that it is the goal. And that's not what the Buddha was attempting to express. We'll get to that in just a moment, cover that ground. But once you get beyond that, you become aware that the concept of onlyness, the concept of oneness with all things, of all things being interconnected and in fact one entity, the God concept, for all intents and purposes, is in fact a physical happening reality. It's not just a nice thought. It's not just a happy thought to have about spirituality in general. We're all one with each other, and all things are connected. No, they really are just not even separated. They never ever have been. There is no separation. There is no division at all. And like for example, the chakras, which we're going to have to determine as being kind of the backdrop, the actual happening reality, catalyst events in the psyche and in the overall human psyche. That there's 7 of them primarily speaking, but there's actually 13 of them, although the remainder beyond the 7 are not, we haven't really ascertained whether or not they're even useful yet, or what they might be, what their purpose might be. That's where we're going with the investigation. But the primary 7 have been determined, and these chakras seem to be these engines of sorts. Catalyst events seem to be like the binding agent, so to speak, the point of inference in time space itself, that upon which psyche manifests. There's a certain, like as I was trying to say in the second video, there's like a story being told through these chakras of the person in general, and of an overall story being told in the greater psyche as well. And this story is, as I said, there's a debate between whether or not the story is told, and it's going to happen as it's always going to happen as it should, or as it's told. There's no deferring from it, is what I mean. Or whether, and that would be fate. That would be the concept of fate in play, wherein you are fated, things are going to be fated to happen. And then the concept of destiny, on the other hand, which is directable, that you can actually manipulate and then determine on your own in what case, this story is being told and you have a direct influence on the telling of it. And that's going to go back to the concept of the shifting glyphs, or Aussie, Kamui Satori Aussie, is that the idea of God telling the story of life through the symbolism of the world itself, and values. That's essentially where the concept of values and aspects come from. The concept of spotters reading the world, that's where all of it will have come from. That's the actual elder tradition before the calamities that gave us that concept, and it's been the defining fundamental concept to everything we've been working with. But you become aware that there is no division, and that the body and the mind are not separated. These chakras, these isolated factors in time space that are determinably real, are not merely collections of energies, but where energy collects, but they in fact do collect because they are physical objects in reality. They are nervous system, they're clusters of nerves in the central nervous system that attach to the major organ systems and the glandular system, which are what the chakras actually are. And that's what kind of shapes the body as it stands, and that's the part of the story essentially that is told. The body's going to be what it's going to be, and then what you make of it is going to be the destiny factor. But there is no division. Psyche and matter, body and mind are the same thing. There is one soul, and it is in fact the principal dynamics inherent in the structuring and the function of matter itself that is the spirit. That's what the spirit is. And more often than not, we're going to be using the word spirit or spiritual in reference to emotional values, to the emotional self or the emotional life. But that the emotions are the charge, the energy behind it that sustains it, that makes it happen. That primary emotion being love, which is consolidated investment or unconditional consolidated investment, which is the focus and the force that's required to suspend matter in time space, to suspend time space itself. But it is in fact reality as a whole. All of reality, all of time and space, everything is one soul, and that's the identity. That's the overall identity. That is the God presence, the God figure. And the very fact that it indeed seems to be communicating with people, that we can communicate with it directly and make alterations in the functioning happenings in our lives, is very suggestive or implicative that in fact, yes, it's a matter of destiny, and there doesn't seem to be considerable fate in play. But where the Buddha comes in, as I said, I spoke to enlightenment as being a sort of trap. I spoke to Nirvana, Raksha, Samadhi as being enlightenment traps, and people will retort saying that, well, that was the goal of the Buddha that he had presented, and that, this is the purpose of Buddhism entirely, so it must be, the right way. It's not a trap, but that's not the case at all. As I've said many times over, we're actually going to get through that here. On one hand, the Buddha was using this state of being to explore the overall psyche and the catalyst events in time-space. The Buddha was recovering values and memory data and considerations that were applicable to here, but that was the purpose. That was the point of it all, is that these values, what you can recover through that state of being, is applicable to your life here, is applicable to how you live your life here and what you do, you know, your relationships, and you will become aware the more, as if you spend a great deal of time out there, and if you actually do hit the wall and come back. You know, a lot of people, as I've said, will get lost out there, and they'll continue to try and get further and further. They'll continue to try and explore more and more, but there's really nothing to be explored. At a certain point, you reach what we've called the dweller on the threshold, which I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description for the locked video that I spoke of before, the crossing the line invitation video, which speaks about all kinds of cool shit. It tells a huge story, and it talks about the nature of love and romantic love, and it talks about, you know, other parallel worlds, and eventually it gets around to talking about the development of blues specifically and this particular state of being, and just it really very well defines it. It's a long video, but I highly suggest you watch it. In any case, I'm speaking to a person here. For everybody, obviously this is for everybody who's watching, but for the specific person, I should like to state that, you know, you have actually voiced in some of the last messages we exchanged that you've experienced yourself as being a kind of a paradox, and that's it. That's where you're getting at it. You're finding it there. That's where you're coming close to hitting the wall, and you're seeing that paradox transpiring. That's the dweller on the threshold. When you get there, you're going to find that it's just a continuous reflection. It doesn't get anywhere, and what you're ultimately, the conclusion we all come to is that, well, this coming back to here and developing our relationships and working on our relationships with others and just community in general, and us coming together and being together, what the world that we are building here in this surface is the actual purpose. That's what matters. That's the important part. Whatever we can find out there and make use of that state to find is purposeful only in the context that it's applicable to this world and this life. This is what matters. Out there, it is the highest stage of consciousness that we can, from what we can tell. We do believe we can get beyond that, but from what we can tell at this point, it is the highest stage of consciousness anyone has managed to reach. But that's frequency. That's as high as it goes, and you get there and you understand pure oneness and freeness. That doesn't mean that it's the goal. That if you get stuck out there and you live that, you make that a way of life to remain there, it's going to burn you out. It's really going to burn you out, and B, it's going to remove you from anything that actually matters. Any moves you can make in this world that will make a solid difference and affect our future, you're just going to ignore for the most part. It seems meaningless to you, which is, you know, what we speak to with this. Let me cover the Buddha first. The Buddha was suggesting that this is a state of being that can be made use of, you know, to define the self and to evolve the self, but it's not the goal. It's not something to be he in fact made note that it was addictions and that it was attachments that caused suffering. That was his big deal. That was what he was really trying to get across. Our attachments to things that are not really, that do not really matter in ultimate reality, because he was experiencing an ultimate reality. But the attachment to being there, the attachment to being that, is in fact the biggest attachment you have. Being able to let go of that pureness, that oneness, come back down here and actually get in the muck of it and make a difference, being able to put yourself through the test, that's the important part. That's what defines you as a person. Out there, being that, living in this state of Samadhi, it's just an escape. It's a distraction. And that's really what the Buddha was speaking to ultimately, if you really look at it. And while on the other hand, the Buddha and what he accomplished and what he taught, that was a very long time ago. We have, spotters in general have advanced a great deal since then. So I mean, even were it the case that he was saying something to that effect, we've actually found that there's more to it than that since then. And yes, I'm going to go ahead and say that we have surpassed the Buddha in that sense by a long shot. I'm sorry if you're attached to the idea that the Buddha is like the ultimate enlightened being, but he's just another spotter, just like Jesus, just like any of the gods, you know, aforementioned in history. They're all just operatives. There's nothing innately special about them, and every one of them will have taught you that specifically first thing. That would have been the first thing they got across. None of us are any more or less important than anyone else. And we all have the ability to, in fact, make use of what one has provided to surpass them. And that's the point. We need to be moving faster. We need to take everything that we've been given and make use of it to spring ahead and move faster so that we can get this done in time, because we weren't prepared. It seems humanity was just not prepared when the initiative actually hit the scene and took a look around. It was a fucking horror story. Nobody was prepped, and now we really have to bust ass to catch up here because we're running out of time. Now, the purpose behind this Samadhi, or the idea behind it, is going to be the removal of identity, or what's referred to as the ego, which again is not existent. There is no ego. That's a trick, and that's going to be another thing the Buddha was getting at. He wasn't saying that the ego is something you need to be fighting against or something that you need to be suppressing. He was saying that the ego is not real. It's not there. It's another ridiculous attachment that we've been kind of programmed to accept. And it seems as though in this day and age, this state of being, in fact, and this ideology has become so easily accessible due to religious influences. Again, coming back to religion, it's going to be the idea of separation, which is the primary idea behind it. When I spoke to this very concept, this ideology and its structure having very fundamental, fatal flaws in the very design of it, I'm going to speak to that right here. The purpose behind it, the idea is that there is the illusion of the self, or what they called the illusion of Gaia, the illusion of the world, which was a pretty awesome video game, by the way, way back when, Illusion of Gaia. Check that out. It kind of touched on this too. But, people who have achieved this state, most specifically the Buddha, said that one must doubt all scriptures, one must doubt all ideologies, even his own. Even what he presented, one must doubt that. One must doubt that it's the truth and move beyond that. But when you have these ideologies in play and you make use of them, you are creating that illusion. You're perpetuating the illusion of the self in doing that. And in thinking that you have found the answer in this Samadhi, it's basically it's a consideration implying that you have found the answer in an external form, because you are separating yourself from the rest of the world, and wherein you believe that you've surpassed the ego by living in this way, and that other people are being egotistical, that you see ego in the world while you have somehow surpassed ego and beliefs. In fact, you are perpetuating the belief system that you are better than others, that you are somehow above or beyond others, and that's going to be a major problem for you specifically. That's the idea that you've always been going for, and it's the one idea I think you probably want to let go of, that you are not surpassing others, you are not going beyond others, you are in fact, your purpose, your goal here, what we're trying to do is integrate. We're trying to bring us all together, realize that we are in fact all one, and know that, live that, understand that in every moment of your life, meditate in every moment, like Sok said, meditate in every moment. The illusion of the self is consistent. You can't get rid of that. The idea here is that you're going to achieve a cessation of the self, which is not, it's not possible. You are the self. What you are trying to do is realize that the actual self is all. It's not one individual identity. And when you get to that point, like you've realized before, you've seen yourself in the past as being fraudulent, as being fake in some way, and you've voiced that many times. Now, you do get to that point where you see the past self as being fake, but the realization that you're really getting at there ultimately is going to be that the past self was like a pawn, that the past self was being manipulated and negotiated by these ghost values in play, being manipulated by social programming, being manipulated by ideologies that they've accepted at some point or another that maybe you even forgot you had accepted, but it's still, the values are still playing in your system. That's what we used to call a phantom, which we've altered the term now, that we use the term phantom for the phantom body, the ghost in the shell, the body that can eject, the spiritual body, so to speak. And we no longer use the term phantom for that. That's probably going to be, the ghost values are going to come closest to that. We don't really think of that anymore. It's not really it doesn't matter anymore. It's not, there's no purpose to it. But yes, that is the case. You're going to find that your past self has been kind of a pawn on the chessboard, manipulated by the player, the actual players in the game, in this divine game, as they call it in the practices of Samadhi, particularly. But once you get to this point and you surpass that, and you actually come back down here and you see yourself as being one with all things, and you realize that and become realized as a person, then you'll recognize that you in fact are now a player in the game, and you can make use of other pieces and move things around. And honestly, the realization that you are one with all, that all things are one with you, when you reach this Samadhi state, you're convinced that you have removed yourself in some way, and that you no longer crave sustenance, or you no longer have interest in engaging debates. You voiced that to me. You have no interest in debating with people. That's a purposeful thing, and you're going to realize that the reason being that these people that are debating you, they're a part of yourself. They're a part of your psyche. You are them. So, I mean, if you have pieces running around that are not only thinking things that are totally absurd, but spreading that, sharing it, infecting the rest of your identity with it, you need to do something about that. You can't let it slide. We can't sit back and think happy thoughts and just expect everything to turn out. No, there are very seriously powerful forces in play working against us, namely cognitive dissonance. Atheism's on the rise. Religion obviously is still a titan in this game, but religion's kind of being defeated at the moment, but by atheism, which is an offshoot. Atheism is the result of religion. It's the goal that the plan of religion had put into play, which is ultimately to separate God from yourself, or to separate you from reality and make you a total pawn that will really just buy anything that other people, push at you. The atheists will believe anything that any scientist tells them, because, they have no consideration that perhaps evidence could be fraudulent, testimonies could be manipulated. We have no idea what's actually really happening, and the only people that are really questioning it properly are us, or spotters that are stepping into the game from that Samadhi state, coming from there back into the game, knowing full well that this world is a part of our self, and that we need to be taking control of it and making a difference, because our self is, our ultimate overall self is just as we had seen our previous fake self. It is a pawn being manipulated, and for the most part, spotters who have, spotters will have been fighting that influence throughout the course of their lives, even though they see their past self as being a pawn, a fake person for the most part, like a robot. They will have been combating that, though, have been resisting that influence, and so that's going to make them feel as though they've been kind of crazy, because other people aren't going to identify with it for the most part. You're not going to have a lot of people identifying with the way that you're thinking or feeling in the past, and it's going to seem as though you are insane. And if you don't intermingle and find other people who have the same properties and the same experiences to help you through it, it's very much going to seem as though you've just lost your mind. But I mean, for the most part, you're likely not insane. That's really a broad kind of diagnosis that doesn't mean much of anything at all. It's another trick, like the diagnosis of schizophrenia is a blanket term for anything we really don't understand. It's just a measure by which for us to kind of pass the buck again to that ego and say, well, I got it covered. I know exactly what it is. It's schizophrenia. Well, no, you don't know a fucking thing about it, honestly. And what you're going to do is go ahead and just start feeding this person experimental drugs that you really don't understand at all there either. It's a shit show. And we really need to be taking the reins on this, people who actually have a grip on it and understand we need to be playing the game for real. We need to be stepping on the board and taking control. We can't, debates are important because we are fighting to change our own mind. You're not alone. You're not out there in this Samadhi state alone. You're not the only one. You are part of all of us. We are all here together as one, and we need to be working on altering the overall mind, because it's not your individual self. That idea that you're living in this Samadhi state and you freed yourself, that's the precise contradiction. And again, that's the paradox factor. wherein you feel as though you've been freed and you've eliminated the self and you've eliminated this ego or belief and you've surpassed it. In fact, you are operating under the belief system that you are separated from everything else and that you are somehow better, which is the ego coming into play, that you are advanced, that you've surpassed everything, and that other people and other things no longer matter to you, which ultimately is you isolating yourself from the remainder of the world, which is what your actual self is. So I hope this helps as a pointer to get you back down, because you need to ground yourself. You need to come back down, recoup, get together with other spotters and figure out how you can go about doing some good. And I understand that you are doing volunteer work. You're doing a lot of good with your life. I'm very happy about that. But that you are a part of the initiative. You helped build it. So, I mean, I'm hoping you'll jump aboard and help us get this going, because, there are a lot of people out there who could be doing the same kind of work, who could be spreading the same kind of message, who could be doing the same kind of good, that just really don't have any guidance. And there's a lot of kids that are coming up now who are totally lost, and they're being, for the most part, they're being targeted by these atheist communities and religious communities, and social programming is targeting them. A lot of them are purplers. You remember where we were going with the theory on purplers. Well, we've got that concrete. We understand that completely now, and it's something I'd love to talk to you about, because that, that's likely, I'm going to venture to guess you've probably encountered a few of them and had some trouble yourself. But yeah, hopefully you'll get back to me on that. I'm going to send you this video along with the others, and I really hope that this has helped to give you some kind of a pointer, because ultimately we need you. We need your help. You're a powerful player. You can be a powerful player. We need your help. I know that you're doing some good on your own, but you have no idea how much good you can do if you connect with this. Because when you get into these higher stages and you actually begin to practice spot casting and you understand how it works, you can make enormous changes just immediately. You can play the game of